The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
I want to welcome you to our first in this 5-series conversation around art and faith with Makoto Fujimura. And so each week, starting now until Holy Week, we'll be looking at 2 chapters. They're pretty short. They are intense,
I think they were short.
theologically challenging, but I think it's going to be productive and really wonderful conversation that we have together. So if you need a copy, I still have some extras available. Anyway, it's great to be gathered. Can you believe how cold it's been today? Wow. Hail? We had hail here. Did you have hail at your homes? Yes. Yep. And it's supposed to get very, very chilly, so don't forget to bring your pets and your plants in tonight that need to be protected. Let's go ahead and begin with our service. If you have your pamphlet with you, that would be very helpful.
Jesus Christ, you are the light of the world.
The light no darkness can overcome. And the day is almost over.
Let your light scatter the darkness.
Let it shine within your people here. Oh yes, light of heaven, coming down. prayers come before you, O God, as incense, and may your presence surround and fill us, so that in union with all creation, we might sing your praise and your love in our lives. Just a reminder as well that we have a sign-up sheet for special music on these Wednesday evenings, and if you'd like to provide some, I'm sure we could set some time aside for that. So please sign up. Please sign up. Okay, the first thing I want you to do is to find a partner, and with your partner, I'd like you to share around this question. What's your favorite artist, or who's your favorite artist, or what is your favorite work of art, and why? Okay? So, who's your favorite artist? What's your favorite work of art? And why? I have many. Got about 30 seconds to wrap it up. So, real quickly, in the back over there, a few of the favorite artists. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Uh-huh. So yeah, some music.
We can't hear what she said at all.
Yeah, they were talking about musical artists. Cardi B. Oh. Okay. How about right here?
Oh, we did it really quick. Monet. For the colors.
Uh-huh.
I love the feeling of the colors.
Monet for the colors. And Grandma Moses for her simplicity. Back in the back here. Van Gogh.
That's what I said, Monet and Van Gogh. I think it.
Uh-huh. That makes an impression when you see an actual work of art in person, not a reproduction. It just, yeah, jumps off the canvas. It's a very different experience. Wow. How about here? Mount Rushmore.
See, who made that?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. How about over here? Starry Night. Another Van Gogh. All right. Fantastic. So, for the next 5 weeks, we're going to be looking at the relationship between faith and art, something that we don't do a lot of in the church. But I'm excited about this conversation because I love art, and I happen to really admire Makoto Fujimura. He's new to me. I didn't know a lot about him until like a couple years ago, and then I picked up his book and found that he had some fascinating things to say, especially as he ties his art to much of the suffering that happens in our world. And it also comes, of course, from this place of faith in his own experience. So before we go too much further, those of you that have had a chance to at least jump into the first couple of chapters, who is Makoto Fujimura? Who is he? You probably figured that out.
Yeah, I read the cover.
From the cover. He's not just any artist, though. He's a world-renowned artist. He has art all over the world in very impressive galleries. So he's somebody who knows his craft and is deeply appreciated by people both within the family of faith and outside it, okay, because he's so good at what he does, all right? So he's a world-renowned artist. What else is he? An author. He's written multiple books. This is like a 30-year project for him, this book, and labor of love. So again, it's not always easygoing because he's very well-versed in theology. He's a big fan of N.T. Wright. You probably picked that up if you read the first couple chapters. And we have read some of N.T.'s stuff. N.T. is a very articulate individual. So yes, it's going to be deep reading that you're going to be doing in these chapters. But at the same time, he's talking about some things that are very significant to our daily lives. So world-renowned artist, author, what else? Person of faith.
Yeah.
Was he always a Christian?
No.
No. Came to faith later in life. And he came to faith through art. Kind of interesting. It was art that brought him to faith. And right now we're going to watch a little clip of his experience of conversion.
Encounter, I think, to really be able to say that Jesus is and was and will be God. I was 27 and I had received this national scholarship to study this ancient technique of painting called Nihonga, which is Japanese-style paintings using azurite and malachite and these beautiful brushes and using silk and paper and it's extravagantly beautiful materials. I realized that I didn't have a place in my heart, a shelf in my heart to hold that beauty, the very beauty that I was creating. I was reading a poem by William Blake, who I studied in college, and his last epic poem called Jerusalem. Blake created a composite figure called Albion, who asked all the questions that I was asking. It was kind of this symbol for searching humanity. And there's Jesus on the cross answering him from the cross. Albion says, "O Lord, my selfhood cruel marches against thee, deceitful to meet thee in his pride." And Jesus answers from the cross. He says, "Fear not, Albion, unless I die, thou cannot live." And then Jesus goes into this soliloquy, which is one of the most beautiful summarization of what the Christians call the gospel, the good news. And he tells Albion, wouldst thou love one who never died for thee, or ever die for one who has not died for thee? And if God dieth not for man, and gives himself eternity for man, man cannot exist. For God is love, as man is love. And every kindness to another is but a little death in the divine image. I was reading it, but it was almost like this voice coming over me, this voice that washed over me. And I realized at that moment, this historic figure of Jesus was no longer just this historic figure, but he was the one who was calling me all along through my creativity. And I realized, if this is true, if Jesus is the one who gave his life for me so I would know love, the greater love that I have been longing for. If this is true, then that is exactly the paradigm that would allow me to understand beauty. Beauty that I was creating. That I could see that, not just as a self-expression, but as an offering. And at that moment, my life changed. I did not know for about a year that I had become a Christian. But I started to run with Jesus at that moment. I wanted to know about Jesus. I wanted to know more about the Bible. I wanted to understand this love. Love that is defined by sacrifice. And at that moment, I think I realized that art, which was this God for me, a way to seek out the truth, has a deeper magic, deeper well. And his name was Jesus.
Also notice that there's a lot of artwork embedded in the service, and that's going to be there from week to week. This is another piece by the artist that you see behind me. And to get a real appreciation for what he does, you really do have to see it in person, because he's using really expensive, brilliant metals and things in the composition of the paints he uses, and it's layer upon layer. We're going to watch more clips of him as the weeks go on, and you're going to see him at work actually developing some of these pieces, and he'll talk a little bit more about how he does what he does. But just to say that in person, it's, like hundreds of layers of paint sometimes, and, brilliant kinds of metal shining through that you can't pick up necessarily in an image on a screen.
Do you know the titles?
This one, oh shoot, do you remember the title of this one, Tony?
That's a weird name.
But it's related to what we're talking about, art plus faith. And anyway, in the first couple chapters of the book, the author spends some time talking about the sacred art of creating, and also the divine nature of creativity. And one of the things he acknowledges in these early chapters is that and evangelicals in particular have a problem when it comes to art, okay? And that goes actually back to the time of the Reformation and even earlier. But if you remember, back in the Reformation, there was this need to pull away from the Roman Catholic Church and kind of create their own distinct identity. And one of the things that happened was all that smacked of Roman Catholicism was destroyed in some cases. There were the Schwärmerei who would go into churches, break all the windows, all the statuary, just destroy anything that had any hint of Roman Catholicism. At that time, Luther was in hiding, but he came out of hiding when this took place. And he came back to Wittenberg, and he got really angry. And he told them, no. We can repurpose even art that wasn't necessarily created for the purposes that we would see as important, and use these things as, again, ways to help people connect to God. So Luther was not like other reformers in that regard, having this disdain for Catholic art especially. But that just sort of set the stage for what would later come in modernity, our time, and that is a real suspicion by many Christians of art because they see that it's kind of the world, all right? And you probably picked that up in the early chapters of this book, that the author is arguing to see art as a vehicle for God's grace and God's mercy. And it can come in many shapes and forms, and so we can't immediately determine if something is an idol. We have to, again, ask some questions and get to know art, but most of all, return to our roots as artists. Because what does the author say about God? And therefore, the big artist. God is the artist, okay? So if we're made in God's image, then in order to fulfill who we are, we need to be. Yes, okay? So we're co-creators. Yeah, he brings up that phrase a number of times here in the book. What if the entire Bible is a work of art rather than the dictates of predetermined checkboxes for us to get on God's good side? What if we are to sing back in response to the voice of eternity echoing through our broken lives? This man has thought deeply about art's place in our lives, and one of the early arguments he makes in the book is that you have to do art. And we've been spending too much time as a church thinking and talking about God and not enough time doing art. That's kind of a profound argument. So if you want to get closer to God, it has to actually do things of a creative nature. That's where we're going to encounter the Spirit and we're going to encounter God himself. On page 7, the author states, "The Bible is full of making activities. I have come to believe that unless we are making something, we cannot know the depth of God's being and God's grace permeating our lives in God's creation. Because the God of the Bible is fundamentally and exclusively the Creator. God cannot be known by talking about God or by debating God's existence, even if we win the debate. God cannot be known by sitting in a classroom or even in a church taking in information about God. God is known through our exploration of our imagination." That's kind of a profound thing. Again, in the church that I grew up in, sometimes art was seen with great suspicion, and that continues to be the case into the present.
He just doesn't talk about art just as painting something or
No.
making, you have to be making something, creating something, but all kinds of things that you create and make
Yeah.
are God's art.
Uh-huh.
So that widening of the definition of art is quite significant.
Yes, it is. I don't know if you caught that, but Betty was talking about this widening of what art involves, what art entails, so that even living your life is an art. But art can include many, many things. Baking in the kitchen.
Making wonderful soup.
Yeah,
Yes, the soups are nice.
yeah, it can include
Gardening.
gardening, singing, all kinds of different activities that we engage in, even working on cars, okay? Yeah, all that is a part of artistic expression. And so I just enjoy that widening of the definition. And then that's not to say that some art can't be destructive or problematic or bring harm, okay? He's not saying that just because it's art makes it okay either. He's going to talk a lot about the place of suffering in terms of how we come to become artists with God, co-creators. On the second chapter, there's a section called God Creates Out of Love, Not Necessity. I thought this was really fascinating. And in that section, he asked the question, why did God create?
Because he could.
Because he could. Yeah. God created out of love. God created because it is in God's nature to make and create. So that's an important inspiration when we're talking about the creative process. My favorite quote from the first two chapters is on page 20. And I thought this was a good summary, again, of creativity and its place in the Christian life. The Bible begins with creation and ends with new creation. Everywhere in between, Creator God, the grand artist, beckons the broken but creative creatures, the little a artists, to create shalom or peace in the face of our ground zero reality all around us. God sent God's Son, Jesus, to be the reconciler and redeemer, to set the world right, and to exhibit God's love in the world. Jesus, God incarnate, spoke in parables and exhibited artistic qualities that inspire me, talking about Makoto, as an artist. We are created to be creative. Though as fallen creatures, we are bound to twist those good impulses to boost our egos and cover up our insecurities, or worse yet, create weapons of mass destruction. So the rest of this book is going to be unpacking a little bit of what it means to co-create and to do so in a way that brings blessing to the world around us. And I think you'll enjoy this extended conversation as we get to see more of the artist at work, exploring different mediums. He engages in many traditional Japanese art forms, which are not really familiar to a lot of Westerners. And so it'll be fun to learn about some of these types of painting, but also pottery, some things like that. Any questions about the first couple chapters? All right. I'm going to close with a prayer at the end of the book, a prayer of blessing, because I just really think it's outstanding. This is by the author. A benediction for makers. Let us remember that we are sons and daughters of God, the only true artists of the kingdom of abundance. We are God's heirs, princesses and princes of this infinite land beyond the sea, where heaven will kiss the earth. May we steward well what the Creator King has given us and accept God's invitation to sanctify our imagination and creativity, even if we labor hard on this side of eternity. May our art, which we make, be multiplied into the new creation. May our poems, music, and dance be acceptable offerings for the cosmic wedding to come. May our sandcastles, created in faith, be turned into permanent grand mansions in which we will celebrate the grand banquet of the table. Let us come and eat and drink at the supper of the Lamb now, so that we might be empowered by this meal to go into the world to create and to make and return to share what we have learned on this journey toward the new. And all God's people said, light shines in the darkness,
And the darkness has not overcome it.
And angel went from God to a town called Nazareth, to a woman whose name was Mary. The angel said to her, "Rejoice, O highly favored, for God is with you. You shall bear a child, and his name shall be Jesus, the chosen one of God Most High." And Mary said, "I am the servant of my God. I live to do your will."
My soul proclaims your greatness, O God, and my spirit rejoices in you. You have looked with love on your sovereignty, and blessed me all my life through. Great and mighty are you, O Holy One. Strong is your kindness evermore. How you favor the weak and lowly ones, humbling the pride of God. You have cast the mighty down from their thrones, and uplifted the humble above. You have filled the hungry with wondrous things, and left the wealthy no pound. Great and mighty are you, O faithful one. Strong is your justice, strong your love. As you promised to Sarah and Abraham, kindness forevermore. My soul proclaims your greatness, O God, and my spirit rejoices in you. You have looked with love on your sovereignty, and blessed me all my life Watch, O Lord, with all those who wake this night. Watch, O Lord, with all those who weep. Give your angels and saints charge over all who sleep. Tend your ailing ones. In your love, Lord. Rest your weary ones. In your love, Lord. Bless your dying ones. In your love, O Lord of all. Watch, O Lord, with all those who wake this night. Watch, O Lord, with all those who weep. Give your angels and saints charge over all who sleep. Soothe your suffering ones. In your love, Lord. Heal afflicted ones. In your love, Lord. Shield your joyous ones.
grant us all your peace. Watch, O Lord, with all those who wake this night. Watch, O Lord, with all those who weep. Give your angels and saints charge over all who sleep.
Great and merciful God, source and ground of all goodness and life, give to your people the peace that passes all understanding and the will to live your gospel of mercy and justice. Through Jesus Christ our Lord.
Amen.
God, remember us in your love and teach us to pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as in heaven.